What's up guys, Fire here, and finally after finishing my exams, I'm back making videos and I'm going to be streaming 3 or 4 times a week as well. Now first thing I want to do is update my tier list. So today we're going to be kicking it off with my top 5 ADs right now for winning solo queue. I'm also going to be giving away some awesome Phoenix gear at the end of this video, so make sure you stick around until the end. I've also decided to kind of revamp these videos to make them even better, so at the end of each champion I'll show you like an overview sheet which will be available for you to download in the description. It'll basically have everything you need to know if you pick the champion and want some quick tips to focus on in the game. At number 5 we have Kailen. Now Kailen is really good at controlling her lane, that's her big thing, and especially if you know what you're doing with the lane. The best way of screwing the enemy AD over is to push really hard, harass them under tower until they're pretty low, and then just freeze the lane. Because they're so low now, it means that they can't come out to CS because they just can't fight you. Her range makes minion based trading really easy, so when the opponent comes to CS, then you attack them while they're attacking the minion, and you take no damage while they do take damage. The reason she is at number 5 is because if you get ganked or you don't poke and deny enough, then chances are that enemy AD will be stronger than you mid game going into team fights, which isn't really good for solo queue. Now champions like Kailen who rely on auto attack scale really hard with items, but you actually have to get those items first to be effective, so she's really strong early, weak-ish mid game, and then strong again late game. So let's just move on to her overview sheet really quickly, and I'll kind of go through the main points. So she's strong against low range champions, but pretty weak against all-in or heals because she relies so heavily on poking. Now to win with Kailen, you need to focus on dominating your lane early by constantly poking with auto attacks and your Q. One of the things that makes playing against Kate so hard is that it's difficult to get on top of her, as she'll just net away and Q you as soon as you step in front of minions. The biggest thing to playing Kailen is focusing on always trying to have more health than your opponent. She isn't as strong in an all-out fight, and if you keep the enemy low, then there's no way that they can all in and get control of the lane. So next up we have Jinx, and if you've looked at my previous videos, then you'll probably be surprised because she's always been number 1 for me. Now the reason she's number 4 right now has basically nothing to do with her or changes to her, but it's to do with the other picks in the game right now. Her biggest problem is she has no escape, and with every top laner now being so tanky and having a gap closer, she's a really easy target to get on top of. Now she's still really strong, and if your team protects you, then she can be a top pick easily. Her Q means that she can either deal a ton of damage with the attack speed minigun, or if she's struggling she can farm at range with her rocket. This just means that it's really hard to shut her down. Like even though her rocket costs mana, she can just buy a few potions and will easily be able to earn back the money. She also has a lot of kill potential in lane after level 6, but more importantly she snowballs really hard and has a crazy late game because of that AoE and attack speed. So Jinx can have an okay laning phase against pretty much anyone, and it really depends on whether they let you push or not. If they let you push, then you basically turn it into Kailen. You poke on the turret and then you freeze to deny them. The problem is that if they don't let you push and instead they play aggressive and try to harass you, then you're probably going to have a really bad time in lane. Jinx isn't that hard to play mechanically, but she's more about decision making, as it's important to know when to ult, like when to use your minigun and when to have more range instead with your cannon. She's probably one of the only ADs right now who can get away with buying an Infinity Edge first, but I still don't really recommend it. Basically you'll suck against divers because you don't have much lifesteal, but if they don't focus you and you can use your cannon in a team fight, then the AoE crits can win a game by themselves. So at number 3 we have Draven, and Draven is a freaking monster in solo queue. He has really high damage and snowball potential with his passive, so if you get ahead then you're likely going to just stay ahead. Now the biggest problem that he has is he has no escape, but the reason it's such a big problem is kind of odd. He's basically viewed as really dangerous, kind of like a Jack, so that means that if you do get ahead in lane, then you're going to get camped so hard and there really isn't much you can do about it. He's strong throughout the game, and if you can catch those axes, then I honestly think that it doesn't matter how bad your team is because you can put them on your back and just kill everything. Catching axes is kind of a double-edged sword as well, because on one side it sucks because it's so hard to manage your axes in a team fight, and especially if you drop them you'll probably lose the fight. On the other side though, the more time you put into him, the better you'll become, and so when you get good with him, you will spank people so hard. He probably has the highest risk out of any AD, but he also brings the highest reward. Now when you're playing as Draven, the biggest thing to focus on is always having 2 axes spinning. Not only will this let you stack your passive for some cash when you get a kill, but it also means that if you do fight and you drop an axe, which you're going to do eventually, then you'll have the cooldown to immediately start spinning another. I've already done a video on Draven tips, and the most important one from there is to make sure you reactivate your ultimate just before it hits its target. It's not difficult to dodge the return damage of Draven's ult when you let it come back automatically, but it's pretty much impossible to dodge it if you press it before. The thing that hurts Draven the most isn't really a particular AD or anything like that, it's just crowd control. Anything that can stop Draven catching his axes really hurts him, and honestly it's kind of up to the support to win the lane against him. Right, so at number 2 we have Twitch, and this is probably the most annoying champion to play against apart from Rengar or Nidalee. As soon as he has his Blade the Ruined King, you aren't safe literally anywhere on the map because that little rat will stealth up to you and kill you in a second. It's not just the assassin part of him either that's so strong, it's that he actually has an insane late game and team fight. The combination means that he will get himself ahead by assassinating, and then it comes into team fights and destroys people. In this meta right now, snowballing is really important, especially for an AD, so that you can keep ahead of the enemy tank that you need to kill. Now Twitch snowballs the hardest out of any AD and can honestly wreck an entire game by himself. The biggest thing that lets Twitch down is that he doesn't really have a fantastic lane phase early, but when he gets some items then he can actually start to fight and control the lane again. Now there are 2 good ways of trading with Twitch, so either you want to just stealth up right in their face and pick an all out fight, or you want to trade using minions. Now when the enemy comes up to CS, you just auto them, use your W on them, auto them again, and then use your E, which will do a 4-stack contaminate and easily win the trade. As soon as you have your blade, you should really start to roam around the map and especially target the mid lane. This is really the way you win games with Twitch, and this is the way you snowball. You go places you're not expected, you get kills, and then you take objectives. It's actually really hard to sum up how to play Twitch, and so if he remains this popular, then I'll do a really in-depth guide on him going over everything you need to know. So at number 1 we have Lucian, and it makes me so happy to be able to put him here. Now I used to play Lucian before he got buffed, and he's honestly just so much fun to play. Apart from that, he's probably kind of a little bit overpowered right now too, I guess, in a way. There's no real downside to picking him. He fits in every comp, he does okay in every lane, and he's strong at every phase in the game. He has a good range to poke from if he lines his Q up, he has an escape, and is really strong at turning fights because as someone is chasing you, you'll just ult and then turn when it runs out. This is also a really good way of dealing with tanks because as they jump on you, you can just use your ult and it's hard for them to do anything about it. I honestly think he's the safest AD right now because even if you can't auto attack, then you'll just ult and you're still constantly outputting damage, which is the biggest thing for an AD. Now there are 2 things that are the keys to winning lane as Lucian. Now firstly, as I mentioned before, lining up your Q on a minion and having it hit the enemy behind is huge. Now it has a huge range after the initial target, and so you can hit the enemy while putting yourself in no danger at all. Secondly is using your passive correctly. So you always want to use your passive in between abilities, and if you don't, then this will probably mean you'll lose fights because it's so important. The common combo, I guess, is dashing forward, auto attacking, Q, and auto attacking again. Now if you don't do that auto attack after dashing forward, then you're missing out on a passive double shot, which is a lot of damage, especially early. Now the other quick tip I always give people is to make sure you auto attack before you use your Q on an enemy. Now obviously you could just do what most people do and walk up to someone and Q them, but if you auto first then you basically get free damage on the enemy, and who doesn't love free damage? The last thing I want to touch on is should you get Trinity Force or not, because I put one build with it and one build without. Now the answer is really hard because it's basically personal preference and what you prefer to do. Trinity Force is really good on him, like really good, and so if you can afford it then you should probably get it, but if you're behind then it's really expensive and you'd probably be better off getting a Last Whisper and a Shiv for only slightly more money. Finally, I just want to mention 3 other ADs who I think are still really good, but they're just not quite in the top 5. Now as a Vayne player, I can't just ignore her, I can't do it. Her lane phase is completely useless against good players, but if you survive or get an early lead, then you can easily carry the game by yourself. Corki would have been number 6, and he's really underrated right now. He's one of the few people who can actually trade with Lucian and Twitch straight up, so if you're looking to learn a new champion that is always a safe pick, then Corki is going to be it. Finally, I kind of had to mention Cog more considering how much play he is getting in the LCS. Cog is really strong, don't get me wrong, but he's very reliant on his team and I don't think that's good for solo queue. He's not as easy to pick up and play as other ADs, and so personally I think that you could spend your time better by learning someone like Twitch or Draven if you just purely want to win. So that wraps up my top 5 ADs, and now it's time for another Phoenix giveaway. So I'm sponsored by Phoenix, and because of that it means that I can get my hands on some awesome gear to give away. Now this time we'll be giving away a Phoenix Nasita, which is their mouse, and I've been using this for a while now and I really love it, so whoever wins this is in for a real treat. Now all you have to do to win is to like my Facebook, like Phoenix's Facebook, and then comment on the pinned post at the top of my page. All that info will be in the description below, alongside all the overview sheets for the champions that I've talked about today that you can download for free if you want to use them. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and the new format. Please let me know what you prefer, and I'll catch you in my next video.